Thank you, Emily. My name is Patrick Cook-Deegan, and we're glad to have, I think, 13 of you here. Thanks for hanging in there. I know that some people are zoomed out after COVID, and especially on a Friday afternoon. So I think this will be energizing for you guys, and we'll have a few breakout sessions. And so we're just going to start off with some introductions. So I'll introduce myself, and then let Bryn and Betsy introduce themselves. So I'm Patrick Cook-Deegan. I'm in Marin, California now. And I run an organization called Project WAYFINDER, which delivers purpose curriculum to higher ed institutions around the world. And we were founded out of the Stanford D School and have a strong partnership with Stanford. Betsy, you want to introduce yourself, and then Bryn?
Sure. Hi, I'm Betsy Schmidt. I'm a professor of practice at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in the School of Public Policy. And I teach in areas of nonprofits and social enterprises and creating social change. And so I'm enjoying learning to teach the whole student as well.
Great. My name is Bryn Interkin. I'm tuning in from Boulder, Colorado, where I just said it is snowing currently. And I represent Watson Institute.
Great, thank you guys. So what we're gonna do to start is just frame our session today. And then that'll be short. And then I'll give you guys a chance to break out and just say basically why you picked this session and how it relates to your work. Then we'll come back to the whole group. And then the three of us will each give an overview of what we do and how it relates to the whole child. Then we'll have another breakout session to discuss, and then we'll come back. So that's the whole thing. And just to frame what we're doing, so this is about the whole child in higher education. And so I think why Ashoka put the three of us together, we figured it out on our third or fourth call, is that we're each doing this in a unique way. So how we thought about it is that there's like 3 concentric circles for what we're doing. So Project WAYFINDER is about the furthest away. So we're an outside provider for a college. And so we go in, we train teachers, and then they do our class, but we're not embedded in any higher ed institutional structures. So we're kind of the outer core of the outer circle. Then Bryn and Watson Institute are a little closer because they have an actual higher ed model, and they're kind of alternative. I'd say they straddle the line a little bit, but Bryn can share more about that. And then Betsy's in the heart of the beast. So she's a full-on professor who's trying to do whole child education from inside out of an institution. And so how we thought we would frame this for you all is, what does it look like at those 3 different circles, and what are the challenges and what are the opportunities in each of them, and how does that relate to whole child education at the higher ed level? Bryn or Betsy, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Gosh, it was perfect.
Okay, cool. So Emily, if you could take the groups in a moment to breakout groups. So what we're going to do is break out, and the thing that I want you, and one of the 3 of us will be in each of those groups, but what I want each of you all to share is, first, why did you choose to come to this session? And then 2, how does it relate to the work that you are doing or you want to do? So just to repeat, why did you choose this session, and how does this work relate to what you are doing or what you want to do? And so we'll do that. We'll break out for like 5 to 7 minutes, and then we'll come back as a group.
Welcome back, everybody. I think we're all here now.
Great. So thank you guys for that. So we're going to jump in, and Bryn is going to go first amongst the 3 of us and just share a little bit more about her take on whole child education and higher education and what Watson does. Bryn, you want to go for it?
Welcome to my 7 minutes in heaven. Here, I'm going to give you a 7-minute presentation, and I want this to feel a super interactive. So just throw out your comments. Just tell me when you want me to stop or slow down or emphasize something more in my presentation here. Because as Patrick mentioned, we've got someone at the heart of the beast with Betsy, who's going to go deep into communicating work that she's doing within a university structure. And then I'm one step removed from that, which is that we run a program that works in partnership with universities. So if that's not a model you're very familiar with, and in a lot of universities, there aren't external organizations coming in and working in a program capacity with universities, just stop me and say, hey, can you zoom out a little bit, or can you zoom in a little bit? So I'll go ahead and get started. First and foremost, my name is Bryn Enterkin. I'm the executive director here at Watson Institute. And funnily enough, I actually joined Watson Institute in 2013, not as a director, but as a student. I was a part of the inaugural class. And after my tenure with Watson, it was a semester program, so 3.5 months, I moved to East Africa, to Uganda, where I lived as a resident of East Africa for 4 years. Started a company, was able to exit that company, started a nonprofit, grew that nonprofit, and then decided, because of a series of events, to come back and to work at Watson Institute after our founder and CEO asked if I might be interested to take on a leadership role within the organization. So that happened in 2018, and I've been a part of the organization now for about 2 years in this capacity. So what is Watson Institute? So I'll give you a really quick overview of what we actually do. All right. Oh gosh. All right. So we are a program that unleashes a life of impact, now in partnership with universities. What we do is we expose university students that attend our program while at their university to global communities of innovators, leaders, entrepreneurs. We tailor them all to be connected with a mentor or two during their time with Watson. And we have created top-notch curriculum to be able to deliver professional development and a career acceleration, all aligned in the social impact space. So to give you a little bit of an overview, we work with master course teachers like Jerry White here. He is a co-recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize back in 1996, and he actually comes to campuses and works full days with students that are in our program. And actually, I met Jerry in 2013, and he told me about a framework that actually transformed my way of thinking with the nonprofit that I was founding at the time. And now that nonprofit, using his framework, has expanded across the country of Uganda. So this is an example of some of the folks that we bring in to help coach and mentor our young scholars, as well as this guy. Oh gosh. Woo! Tom Chi works, he actually is the head of Google's self-driving car, was the brains behind Google Glass and other innovations at Google. So we started, oh gosh, what is going on here? Here we go. We started in Boulder, Colorado, like I said, in 2013, really as a accelerator program for young entrepreneurs. But we realized that finding young entrepreneurs in the social impact space was sort of like finding a needle in a haystack. And we wanted to be able to make our program more applicable to a broader audience. So we expanded to South Florida, where we had partners at Lynn University. And we went from just being an accelerator program for people who had a venture and an idea that they wanted to accelerate. And we wanted to make it applicable to people across the university that were studying something, but wanted to also be able to apply social impact into their orientation as a young person. So you can actually get your bachelor's degree in social entrepreneurship at Watson Institute at Lynn University. So it's a partnership model, but we realized that that's actually still too narrow. So as of recently, we've expanded our model so that it layers perfectly on top of any major. So you can be studying English or mathematics, engineering, anything at your university, and you can also be a part of the Watson Institute model. And we expanded to Guatemala City, Guatemala, with a university partner called UFM. It's a top university in Guatemala. We just signed our MOU with them in 2020, so this year, where UFM students and additional students from around the world can actually come to UFM with whatever major that they have, and they can attend our program and receive our social impact certificate while also studying their respective degree majors at the same time. This is the model that we are actually taking across the United States, Latin America, and China in partnership with universities. And the way that this looks for universities is that they share revenue with Watson Institute, but we recruit the students into the program, and we deliver the program model in partnership with the university. So it's a win for the university, it's a win for Watson, and it's a win for the student. And then lastly, the proof's in the pudding, as you know. So we like to tout our numbers. We have about 200 alumni from 52 countries around the world, collectively have raised about $80 million and have hired about 500 people full-time or part-time. Our alumni have been Echo and Green Fellows. We have 4 Forbes 30 under 30 alumni, and a lot of our students go on to graduate school, including Harvard and NYU, Princeton, among other universities. So our recruitment model is really spot on in terms of trying to bring the best of the best to Watson at whatever respective university we're in partnership with. So that's Watson Institute. I think I'm right at 7 minutes. I'll hand it back over to Patrick.
So Project Wayfinder, I'm the founder and CEO of Project Wayfinder. I've been like a long time experiential and purpose-based educator, and primarily working in the high school space, but more recently working in the higher ed space. But I would say my whole career has been devoted to how do we help adolescents develop lives of meaning and purpose. And so when I think of adolescence, I think of ages 12 to 24. Which is Dr. Dan Siegel's at UCLA's definition. And so the brain is really growing until 24, 25. And a lot of the research shows that identity and purpose formation is the most impactful in that stage. So that's what I've been doing basically since I was in college. What does Project Wayfinder do? An overview of us. So we were founded out of the Stanford D School in fall 2015. I got a fellowship there to basically answer the question, what would a purpose-based curriculum look like for high school students? So originally, for the first few years, we focused on the high school space. And then in 2018, with another partnership at Stanford called the Stanford Flourishing Project, we developed a higher ed purpose curriculum. And we currently work with 100 schools total, and 10 of them are colleges, which I'll get into a little bit more. But we basically spent 2 years in R&D, and next year will be our 4th school year and our 3rd year in higher ed. So what problem are we trying to solve? And I think probably if you're here, if you're looking at me right now, if you chose to be here Friday afternoon, like you probably care more than just about the grades and of your students, right? So you care about their social emotional well-being, and you care about them as humans. And higher ed, for the most part, is not designed to deal with this well. And the statistics are pretty alarming. So college students are seeing a decrease in well-being. There's a rise in anxiety and depression. And like Betsy said on one of our calls, it's like she's educating a group of depressed kids. And so if you actually look at the statistics, anxiety and depression for college kids has doubled in the last decade. The causes for that are way longer than I could get into now, but it's rising, and schools don't know what to do about it. So what a lot of schools do about it is they throw in support services, or they have mental health services, or they have some auxiliary program. And one of our core theses at Project Wayfinder is that if students, similar to Watson, but like if students have a sense of meaning and purpose, it helps them have better mental health. It helps them get through the hard parts in life. And so what I think of is that a lot of the mental health providers or activities in the college are kind of putting Band-Aids on a big wound, and actually you need to heal the wound from the inside out and address it from the inside out. And that's what Project Wayfinder is trying to do. So our central thesis is that if you have a sense of purpose, if you have a meaningful life, it won't mean that you don't hit low points, but that you get through them in a more healthy way. And there's a lot of research on how this works. And Dr. Bill Damon, who's at Stanford and one of our advisors, has studied this the most and done the most research on it. And I'm happy to share more with you guys if you want to about that. So our vision for college grads is, I would say, the 3 parts at the bottom is a sense of who they are and what they value, so self-awareness. 2, an understanding of what makes them come alive, what's important to them, meaning and purpose. And then 3, the skills and tools to do something about it, so social innovation and change making. And I would actually posit that, like, if you do number 3 and number 2 and number 1, it's a lot harder to do human development wise, and you actually want to go 1, 2, 3, and that's part of what makes Wayfinder's approach unique. So how our curriculum works is it's divided into sections on self-discovery, beyond self, living on purpose, and students go through this either in accredited class, so it's an hour a week or 2 hours a week, or it's often done at some schools, like at the University of Utah, it'll be done as a summer bridge program or an academic or student affairs and support services. So basically we have 4 credit classes, we have summer bridge classes, and we have academic support. And we've built the curriculum so it's modular enough to be used in these different settings. To give you an example of like what's one activity that we do, one of them here is called Capturing Strengths. So students literally sit across from each other, and they do a peer interview where over here is a list of questions of what are you best at, and then what do you want to develop, and then the other student records them and puts the parts that they feel strong in the mountain, and then the parts that they want to develop up above the mountain. So how does that relate to purpose? Is that research on purpose shows that students, to feel purposeful, want to build on their strengths. And a lot of education talks about what we don't know yet, but actually bringing students back to what they do know can be really powerful. So that's one of the students' favorite activities that we do. Currently we partner, we spent a year developing it. Last year was a prototype year. This year we're piloting it with Stanford, Brown, Berkeley, and then a set of other big public schools, University of Utah, Rhode Island, Hawaii. And then we also work with community colleges. Right now, the College of San Mateo and Fullerton College both in California. So those are our current partners. And in terms of the impact it has, I mean, just one quick story is this is a woman named Grace who I taught at UC Berkeley last year. And she was a very high achieving student. She'd gotten straight A's her whole life. She came to Berkeley and was supposed to play lacrosse. And basically she spent her whole life doing things she was supposed to do and achieving things she was supposed to achieve. And this class basically reset her life. She quit lacrosse and she started doing things that she cared about. And now she's actually one of our TAs, and I hang out with her now, and she said that was like a big turning point in her life. So what we want ultimately is for students to inquire, like, why are they doing what they're doing? Why does it matter to me? And what kind of life do I want to lead? Instead of what others think for me, or what I should do, or what I'm supposed to do. So I will pause there. Great. So I'm just looking at a few of these questions. I just saw the chat pop up. So I might answer those before I hand it over to Betsy and see if there's a question or two for Bryn. How are we adapting to COVID-19? So actually we're teaching currently at Brown, Stanford, College of San Mateo, a bunch of them, UC Berkeley, and we've just taken our classes online. So we now do them online. We had a whole session about it with my team this week. I would say for classes that started in person and then went Zoom, it's gone better than ones that just started on Zoom, because you have this cohesiveness. But overall, it's worked pretty well. So that's one question. Then the second one is, how do you convince those that it's experiential learning? We're going to get into that kind of in our other breakouts. That's like a bigger question. So let's say, does anybody else have a question for Bryn right now before we jump into Betsy? Just because I feel like 3 of these in a row could be a lot. If you have one, you can just type it in. And Bryn, is there anything else that you wanted to add to any of the questions that popped up?
I see here a question about recruiting. And I think that really gets to the heart of what is the value proposition that Watson's bringing to university partners. And for us, the value proposition is one, we bring top talent to your university by recruiting in a very, very specialized way. We recruit people from around the world. Like I said, we have a very global network of scholars that we then bring to university partners. So we go global, and we have a big footprint in Africa, for instance, where about 40% of our scholars come from. And we zero in on people that want to major in their mission. So people that have, they're majoring in, say, engineering, and they believe deeply in engineering, but they're not exactly sure how to do impact in engineering. So we help them understand how to take what they're already really passionate about and put impact at the very heart of it. And so we recruit people from around the world globally into the university partners, and that really helps bolster the financial kind of arrangement with the university, is that we do the recruiting, and then it's a huge value proposition for the university partner. But then we borrow the brand of the university. So UFM, for instance, the top university in Guatemala, has a huge network in Latin America. So it's much easier to recruit someone from Brazil and Chile to UFM than it would be to recruit them to another university that they've never heard of, for instance. So we borrow the brand of the university. So it's a win for both partners. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Bryn. Betsy, let's hop into your presentation. And then after that, we'll have a breakout session to discuss other questions.
Yeah.
Great. Is that working?
Great.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for staying in here. And I do want to make one clarification. I don't teach only depressed students. I just have too many. Before I start, I just wanted to try a little experiment with asking you some questions. I would like to know, of all the things that you think students can learn, what will best prepare them for life after school. And if you could share that in the chat, then that might start our conversation. How to communicate, understanding of themselves. There we go, building resilience, value. Yeah, these are all the types of things that I've been coming around to too. And I have to admit that when I first started teaching, I thought my whole role was to impart knowledge. But now I'm finding that I really want them to have certain beliefs in themselves, to have self-confidence and to have resilience and a certain amount of creativity. And mostly a strong set of values, really understand what their values are. So it's been an interesting journey for me as well as the students. I'm teaching a course called Making a Difference, Policies and Strategies for Social Change. And this is a course on how we create successful social change. We explore tools for designing change and strategies for turning good approaches into widely adopted practices. In many ways, this is a very traditional public policy course. We're examining approaches to complex social problems. We're thinking about building community, about building the economy, addressing climate change, trying to achieve justice, all the things that you do in a traditional course. But because we're also talking about strategies for social change, we're coming up with the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 days, such as design thinking, systems thinking, appreciative inquiry, impact gap analysis. It runs the gamut. And what I've found is that every time I introduce a new concept as a change for a strategy for social change, so the concept can be something like a systems thinking, I'll ask them first to take that concept and think about their role with it. Excuse me. So, for example, I'll ask them, think of a system that you would like to change. What is your role in that system? I'm going to start coughing. Then the next question, or if they're doing appreciative inquiry, I ask them to think about what they do well before I start asking them what the community does well. So they get used to seeing that the strategies for social change are also good strategies for personal change. And it is a way, I hope, of helping them reframe their conceptions of themselves and begin to see themselves in the role of a change maker. We've all been talking about our impact. We ultimately, I think, will never know what our impact truly is. Ideally, 10, 15, 20 years from now, these things will be embedded in our students' personalities, and they won't really even know where it came from. But I do ask the students to tell me which of these concepts they think they might use in their personal and professional lives. And I find that about 3/4 of them think that they actually will use these in their personal lives. They mention appreciative inquiry, impact gap analysis, which I thought was very interesting. That is thinking what else have I tried when you're doing it to a person? What else have I tried? Where have I been successful? Where is there still a gap that I can try something new? And I also ask them an open-ended question of what will you continue to think about? And I just jotted down 2, I get fascinating responses, but I jotted down 2 of them. One was, I will think about different ways to approach a problem with other people's mindsets rather than just my own. And the one that has just stuck with me for a year, appreciative inquiry has changed the hostile voice of my depression. So I do think this is a way of having a traditional course and sneaking in some of this personal growth. But it's also been something that's helped my conundrum. And when I was in the small group, I think it was Heather was saying that she was didn't feel equipped to teach this, and neither do I. So I, who kept thinking that my job was to impart knowledge, was going, well, am I going to have to send them just to student counseling or to other professors? And then I realized what I'm doing is helping them discover this. I don't have to be the expert. These strategies are so similar for personal growth and for community growth that we can just help them discover what's really inside them. And it's also helped me realize that while I can change my perspective, they can change their perspectives. We can all begin to see and hope for the future and imagine something better than what we have, as opposed to so many liberal arts and public policy courses that are just so good at diagnosing what's wrong. And so to give us some hope, and then to inspire us to act on these new perspectives. And I'd like to end with a quote that I got in another session today. I don't know if any of those people are here, but they said, action without learning is ignorance, and learning without action is selfishness. And it's just really exciting to work with students who are discovering this about themselves and realizing that they can help make the world a better place. Thanks.
Cool, thank you, Betsy. So Emily, if you could take us back to the breakout groups that we were in before, is we're gonna have a chance now to kind of debrief that and see what questions and thoughts you all each have. Welcome back, everyone. So we just have like 4 or 5 more minutes. And Bryn's gonna close us out, but before she did that, I just wanted to answer, I saw this question up here, which I think is a good one, which is basically, how do you convince other people at your org that, they should care about the whole child, or they should care about purpose, or, obviously if you self-selected to be here on a Friday afternoon, you probably don't need a lot of convincing, but there might be people back at your org that do. So I deal with this a lot. So I thought of 5 answers that you could or couldn't use, and then I'll hand it over to Bryn. But the first one is that it's grounded in all of WAYFINDER's work is grounded in research. So like we work with clinical PhDs to do that. So if you talk about it from a research-based perspective, then I think it lands much better with people. Basically, what's the academic research behind it? What's the research on students behind it. So we put everything in that lens, and that helps. From an administration standpoint, this sounds bad, but it's true. As we talk about the ROI and the bottom line, is that basically for every dropout at a college, they can be losing $100,000. And that ultimately, if students have a sense of meaning and purpose, then they're more likely to stay in school. And that if you do a small intervention with a student and it has a big ROI, they might stay on board. I don't really like that, but it speaks to the minds of some administrators. And then the third and fourth one is, the third one is just like sharing some of the mental health statistics, because they're pretty brutal and alarming, and I can share that, but and just talking about how this problem has increased over the last decade. And then the last one is, I just like, since I do it at Stanford, I just say that Stanford says it's okay to care about students' mental health, so you should too. It's annoying, but that works in higher ed. So I'll stop there, and then I'll hand it over to you, Bryn.
So I asked if Mike from my session would mind giving a 30-second synopsis of our session. Would you mind if we did that really quick? Just Mike, can you just share with the group?
Sure, yeah, 30 minutes start now. We talked about a lot of great things, but some of the ones that stood out to me were that first about like how we could potentially expand the same idea from the handful of colleges who do it now to potentially all the colleges around the globe, and how it is in large part influenced by not only how decentralized / centralized education is in different countries, but also by market forces, and how we can actually ask students for their opinions, and yeah, who are the stakeholders in all of that. That's roughly 30 seconds.
Wow, thanks, Mike. That was great. And then Betsy, do you want to have 30 seconds to report out what you guys discussed?
I was going to let Omar do it.
Okay.
Thank you. So we talked about more on surveys and questionnaires about values of sort of building on Betsy's presentations. And then we sort of brainstormed on ideas on how a couple of different ways in which we can acquire data from students throughout the semester as well, about how their values are developing over time or changing.
Great. Thank you. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that I think that a huge takeaway for me from this is that every person within this this session is trying to find ways to incorporate more meaning into the work they're doing in higher education. And that can look a variety of ways. It can come from the belly of the beast. It could come from service providers like Watson Institute, kind of serving as the intel inside, coming in and helping work with universities to achieve that, as well as the great work that Patrick is doing and helping universities discover how their students can find more purpose in the great work that they're already moving towards. So I just wanted to say thank you to each of you all, and that we're going to leave our email addresses, the three folks that are on the panel, in the chat box. But otherwise, it's just been a pleasure to get to know some of you a bit better, and I hope to be in touch. Is there anything else, Emily, that you need from the three of us?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for ending, I would say, on a very strong note. So